Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the Soss number 518 in a US 26D finish. I have one removed from the packaging. This is a relatively new hinge from Soss. I don't know how old it is. The year's 2022 right now, first quarter, a year maybe, something like that. And what's really remarkable about this hinge is that Soss has innovated their product line, and they've done so, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago. Their product line is different today than it was then. They have those Hercules hinges, and Soss was already meant to handle heavy doors, but now they can handle obscenely heavy doors, 1,000-pound sort of doors. And here they are with a wide throw hinge. Who would have ever have thought you could get a concealed hinge that would provide you with a wide throw style approach? Yeah, it's definitely a wide throw type of approach on this hinge. Singapore Soss Cav 518. I know that their engineering is in the United States, I think Indiana, or somewhere in the Midwest, and that their manufacturing is indeed in Singapore, that's for sure. So this is a concealed hinge, obviously, which is what Soss is really known for, in a variety of different derivatives of a concealed hinge. And let's go over some basic dimensional properties, and we'll talk about why you would use a 518. It's about 4 9/16 tall. Overall width looks like it's about 1 3/16. Its overall depth is about 2 3/8 or so. This is going to include fasteners. They look like they're a number 14 would be my guess. Maybe a 12. Now, they say they're 10. These are definitely not number 10 screws, probably 12s. Flathead Phillips wood screws. You'll get some installation instructions with them as well. We're going to go over all of that. Now, what would you use this hinge for? Let's talk about that now. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it. Where would you use this hinge? It's a particular hinge really for one application, and this application doesn't come up often, but it certainly does come up. And basically you're dealing with an application where you want to conceal a door in the sense that you want your woodwork to be continuous, and you need a door, but you don't want to call attention to the door. You may not be necessarily hiding the door, but you don't want to call attention to it. There are other instances where somebody literally wants to hide the door, and this type of hinge could help, which means if you're trying to hide the door, you're also trying to control access to it as well, and that's possible as well. But I believe it would be safe to say that the most common time that you see this type of hinge is just in an application where you've got woodwork. You're going to have what will look like panels, you're going to have trim, and that's going to continue along, whether it be a residential application in a kitchen, or it's going to be a commercial application in a law firm. You've got just a wall full of beautiful architectural woodwork. Well, there might be a need to have a door. And the way that this hinge works is, it works with that trim that you have already incorporated into the design, in the sense that you'll have a panel, you have two panels, and you're going to have a piece of trim over here, then you're going to have a piece of trim over here, or on one side. And this allows you to get that door out and around over a piece of trim that's going to be hanging over the face of the door. And that right there is the bane of design. Let's say that again, you've got your door, and my trim is going to hang over like this. Okay? I'm holding it away from you because I can rotate my arm. That's going to allow me to get the door out and around to 90 degrees, okay? Because of where the vertical axis of pivoting has been moved, it allows it to work around that. Whereas normally you could only have a hinge like this because you're rotating at a different vertical axis of pivoting. Think of a regular butt hinge, just a standard hinge, and in your mind's eye, think of a laser beam going straight down through the barrel of those hinges. That's the vertical axis of pivoting. That's not how Soss hinges work. The standard hinge doesn't help you much, even though that vertical axis of pivoting floats through the arc. But this vertical axis of pivoting is easier to see how it moves. When we articulate that, the vertical axis of pivoting This piece, I don't know the proper mechanical engineering term for this. This connecting piece allows the leaf, the door leaf and the frame leaf to stay connected there, but that vertical axis of pivoting is still rotating. Probably not severely unlike a standard Soss hinge, but because of how this hinge is made with this large 90-degree sort of connector, it allows you to get out and around a projecting piece of trim. As soon as these became available at some point last year, I got a call for them. Do you have them in stock? No. A week later, you have those in stock? No. And I was thinking, yeah, this application exists, but not so much that you keep them in stock. Well, now we keep a couple dozen in stock. Turns out people need to get their hands on these. So mortising for this is not going to prove to be really any different than any other Soss hinge. And if you've seen any of my other videos on Soss, there's the one commandment of Soss. That's the E dimension. That's on the template. The E dimension is a dimension that you cannot exceed when you are laying out where you're going to place the hinge. Okay, as long as you don't get bigger than the E dimension, which I think is a 1/4 inch on this hinge, you're good. All you got to do is position it vertically and then observe that E dimension, and then you're fine. And interpreting the template is simple at that point. I've had people within the industry or people who will buy this hinge one time and likely never again. I have a range of people who have zero experience to the point where they will not use the hinge because they're just intimidated by it, by the mortising requirement, all the way up to, yeah, that's no problem. Those are great. I love doing those. I'm of the opinion that the first time you look at their template, it's a real head scratcher. As soon as you mortise one the first time, you go from intimidated to expert, and that's just how this goes. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. They weigh about 2.17 pounds, so each hinge is over 2 pounds. At least it is with its fasteners. Really nice look is what we're seeing here. Again, if you've never used Soss, don't shy away. I mean, you can put it in with a hammer and chisel if you want. You really can't, but you can use spade bits to do it. You should use a Forstner bit. Why should you break through any sort of intimidation that you're currently dealing with about Soss? Well, here's why. Standard Soss hinges are concealed, as is this wide throw. Standard Soss hinges are substantially less expensive than other concealed hinges on the market. You don't have to spend $150 or $200 a hinge just for concealed, where other manufacturers offer those. What they also offer are adjustable hinges that you can adjust them in the X, Y, and Z axis. Soss does not offer that type of hinge, and according to the Soss, they never will. I don't disagree with them at all. I don't see a reason to fix what is not broken, but hinge companies need to innovate. I can think of one today that hasn't innovated in years, if not decades, and they're going out of business. Hinge companies need to innovate. They need to solve problems, and in this case, an age-old problem. Customers do want those adjustable concealed hinges, and I've spoken to people who've ordered that, and I says, well, have you ever used Soss? No, I've never used those, and I don't know how to install them. And I said, well, you're installing a concealed hinge. Yeah, but the door and the frame manufacturer are doing all that work. Oh, I understand. So why are you paying more for the concealed hinge? Well, I like to be able to adjust it. The logic with a Soss hinge is when you mortise it to the exact center line from the top down and the correct E dimension, this hinge will not move. Never. There's no need to adjust so long as you mortise it the first time correctly. I've had other people order those far more expensive hinges just because they need the ability to adjust that because they know they're not going to be spot on. I can think of 30 years ago, an old time client. He was an old timer then. A master carpenter will make simple work of this type of hinge, and it will be spot on. So when you install it, and it's exactly where the template tells you to put it, and you've measured twice and cut once, you don't need to adjust it. Never. Never will you need to adjust it. These hinges don't come apart. Now, in 30 years, I did have a client walk in about 2 years ago and showed me a Soss hinge that was bent. And I said, I've never seen such a thing. How did that happen? I've got a broken Soss hinge. He brings it in. I says, well, what happened? Did somebody sit on top of the door? Turns out it was a bookcase, and they had a hinge that was far too small for a bookcase, a Soss hinge. And then the two children were found sitting on top of the bookcase, and they literally bent the hinge, bent the plates that are riveted from each component, and they literally just bent those. So we just, replaced the 3 hinges, and it was done. That's the only time I saw a problem with the Soss hinge. And again, we've hung obscenely heavy material with it. So before you opt for that 3-way adjustable material, which I'm personally suspect of, because anything that can take a screw that you can adjust will need adjustment. There is no way to adjust these because they are just, the parts are put together in such a way that they can't move on their own, short of it breaking. I say don't spend the extra money. You already understand how to install it. Just double check, I guess. Measure twice, cut once. The people at Soss are really nice people. They are simple, straightforward. They answer your questions. I enjoy very much promoting their products, using their products. I've machined for their products. I've troubleshoot. I've sold. I've done everything with them. Any questions on the 518US26D or any other Soss product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you. Thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up. Please subscribe and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.